Welcome everybody to another Should You Pull video, possibly the worst lit Should You Pull video of all time because the sun is beaming through the window in front of me and these blinds that we have here are absolute trash. You can tell I'm pretty tilted already. But that's not why we're here. We're going to talk about Yuffie, and I'm going to start off, as I tend to do, with an AI video, and it's pretty interesting because Yuffie has a very important single target buff. This buff gives her typed evasion for Pierce, it gives her a mirage effect to escape with damage one time, but it also gives her ignore sure hits for 3 turns, which is a very big deal. It basically turns any sure hit into a non-sure hit, which means it then checks your accuracy. So if you are a unit with really low accuracy, but all these 100% hits, all of a sudden you're going to be missing Yuffie. So this buff is the most important buff on her kit. So let's see Yuffie in action. She's actually going to use the team buff Subterfuge from the sub job that she has, the operative sub job that is, and that's not even her own main job team buff. So now second turn, she uses her main job team buff, which gives an agility buff to her allies and a single target buff to herself. So that's something, right? We still haven't used that skill yet. Let's see how long it takes her to use this. Okay, we finally had her use that buff, and now she has all those 3 very important skills, and it basically took this, like most of this fight, to get it online until she had successfully put all of her AoE buffs on, and now she's AoE buffing again. So this is going to be very important that we make sure she uses this skill. Okay, so we've got our second test video here. This time she is Dragoon sub, so no operative. We're going to put her on auto, and she uses her agility up and then single target resistance up. That's what we were expecting. That's good. However, she's now going to use her own TMR, which gives her some AP back and some luck up. And that's, again, instead of her own single target, very important anti-sure hit buff, which is definitely very concerning. It seems to be a very low priority. She then goes and attacks. And I should have mentioned she's an attacker AI. She's always going to attack over literally anything else. Her buff priority is not very solid. So what I would say about Yuffie's AI is that hopefully you pulled for Sorrow, who provides both an evasion buff and an agility buff on one single skill, because once he uses that on Yuffie, she has both. She doesn't need to use her own versions of those, which are split across 2 different buffs, and you can safely put her in a position where she is using her single target buffs. But you have to be very careful with whatever TMR you give her as well, because again, you really want that buff to come off. Now, we should mention she did not use her Dragon's Kin buff. I don't know if it was on for this player, but that is something, if that's a lower priority, that's really good because it means she uses her most important buff, but then she uses the very powerful Dragon's Kin buff. So hopefully that's the case, but either way, there's definitely something to be noted here. She's also very fast. She's very mobile. For Sorrow to keep up with her and buff her, there's going to need to be some kind of testing whenever you do use her in arena and guild battle. Otherwise, it's going to be very tricky to use her properly. All right, let's talk some pros and cons for Yuffie, and we're going to start with her survivability, which is very high considering she has a very high evasion rate, and therefore she has high accuracy because her luck stat is so high, but she also has a very high dexterity stat, which is going to help for her accuracy, but it's also going to help for her crit rate, which is really good to see. And she even has a CT up every time she evades. It's a 100% chance. It just happens, which means that every time she evades, she's going to get her turn even faster. The more she's getting her turn, the less she's going to be dying, right? Yeah, we're catching up now. Okay, good. She also has a Mirage effect, which if you're not familiar with, is a one-time damage nullification. Very good to see. It is affected by barrier breaks though, and then ignore sure hit for 3 turns on the same skill, no less. So what that means is it turns those sure hits into non-sure hits and then they just count the accuracy of that unit. So some units actually have crap accuracy, but they have sure hits, and now they're going to be just really terrible against Yuffie. She also has multiple skills to blind her opponents, which means they will have a decreased accuracy score, which is just really good to see. So lots of things to do with accuracy. She doesn't have courage, she doesn't have high HP, she doesn't have defense or spirit or much AoE or like single target resistance to speak of on her kit. but those things aren't that important. She doesn't really want to be taking hits ever. She wants to be evading them. Next, let's talk about her damage, which is certainly appetizing because she can get easily to 100% defense penetration. Now, it is conditional, so she has 60% defense penetration innately as long as her health is above 80%, which is why she cannot take a hit. She also gets 40% more from her LB for 3 turns. That's 100% without equipping anything, but we will equip stuff for sure. And then she has 35% slash resist penetration, which it counts her Shuriken. I am counting that, but then 40 more on a skill on her kit. It's not the easiest skill to use in my eyes. It's similar to Cloud's, where it's an AoE, but it does have friendly fire, but that's also for 3 turns, so that's looking okay as well. She has a non-type skill, which dispels protect, but she also has a pierce skills on her dragoon sub, and she has lots of chaining skills. She has 3 different 3-chain skills, which means that she can increase her chain damage, and she can increase your other slashers damage. She can increase your fire chains, and you can deal some serious damage if all your units go in a row. The next thing we should talk about is her utility, and she's got very high mobility. It's 4 move innately, 2 jump, but she can also raise both through passives and then raise them again through an active buff on her Dragoon sub. So she can get up to 6 move and 4 jump if she really wants to, without, again, using any sort of external sources, which is pretty cool. She also has those chaining moves we talked about, very good for PvE. Big agility boost, 30% agility boost on her limit burst, which is really going to help her obviously go sooner, but also her evasion in a way. And then we have healing power down on the Dragoon sub, very useful right now for a lot of those self-heal skills or teams that are running healers. And she even has Dispel, Auto Restore, and Haste, which is on the Blinding Trinity, which just got upgraded on the Operative sub job. And again, that's a skill that gets rid of Auto Restore and Haste, but also blinds your opponent, which means they can't hit you as easily. So lots of synergy on her kit. It's looking pretty good. Now, before we hit the cons, I just have to do that little call to action where I say, if you haven't subbed to the channel yet, if you haven't liked the video yet, you made it this far, go ahead, do that for me. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's talk about the cons. There are some. The biggest one I would say is that her slash and defense penetration are conditional. Now, we can supplement that several ways, which we will talk about later, but it is a big if. If she loses those things, her damage goes down. Her range is also relatively short. Now, she is a very short, a very fast unit that has high movement, so that's not the biggest deal, but it is, when you're approaching, if you can't approach someone easily, then you can't attack them. They might get the first hit on you. The evasion buff for her is also on her sub job, which means if you need to use it, if you don't have Sorrow, if you're using her in a one-off evasion, 2 non-evasion units, then you kind of need to use Operative. You're kind of stuck with that unless you're running other evasion units. She also has no barrier break, and yes, the 3-hit skills will break a barrier, but they do, the barrier affects their damage, whereas a barrier break breaks the barrier and then just pops the person right in the face, right in the mouth. It hurts. No courage or re-raise Dispel either, and she has no courage or re-raise of her own. So that's definitely something that we like to see with these types of units, but at least she does have that Mirage. That's really good. Let's talk about some of the equipment associated with Yuffie, because there's quite a bit. Her TMR, first of all, is very solid. It's an accessory that gives luck. It has an AP restore. It has 2 uses. Objectively, it's very solid. It doesn't have any agility, however, and that is a bummer for me. So it's a good TMR. It's not outstanding, but it's very solid. She also has a weapon that you can get during this event that will give her slash attack 15, slash pen 20, crit rate 15, crit damage 15. It's a must craft for her. You definitely want it. And then there's the Moogle Cloak, which will be our Trial of Reckoning UR item. This is a cloth armor, so it's not an accessory, and it looks really good on paper, right? So we're looking at something that has, oh, sorry, I gotta pull it up here. It has acquired AP up 30% for anybody. It has crit evasion 20 for anyone, but it also has 15 crit evade on any form that you make, so that's 35 total. And then for Sephiroth and Yuffie, they get elemental resistance 5% and 10 AoE resistance, so those are really powerful effects. Now for Yuffie, it's kind of a bummer because you can build an evade version of this, which gets 21 evade, but it doesn't have a passive evade as well, so you kind of miss that if you were going to equip something like a ribbon or a black garb or the winter clothing, whatever it is, because you are going to be using her shuriken. You don't want to take that off. So you don't really have any flexibility here unless you want to, like, there's really, you're going to lose some evasion to use this. And that's kind of an issue. She doesn't need the elemental resist or the AoE resist. Her vision card's giving her 60% acquired AP up, and she doesn't need crit evasion because she doesn't want to get hit, right? Like, she's not going to be built to survive attacks for the most part. So I don't actually see this as a very big Yuffie item, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then Sephiroth, it's actually kind of interesting because it is very good for him. Now, depending on who you're targeting, this is going to be possibly best in slot for him. However, he is actually going to have to take on Yuffie for a while, and you might be thinking Yuffie or Sephiroth has all these 100% hits. Yes, but she negates those. So his accuracy is going to be something that's very important for him. So if you're using his sword, he's using the sword that we just farmed last week, and you want to use this Moogle cloak, all of a sudden you can't put an Alex ring or another accuracy item. So what that means is that you should be building an accuracy and luck set for Sephiroth. So you could use it with the Moogle cloak, but at the end of the day, this is a very powerful item. You can't go wrong crafting it, but it's maybe not as like plug and play as it looks. Next up, let's talk about these VCs because they're really good. The first one's free. We can just get it, build it, no problem at all. Everybody should do that, and the effects are bonkers. The cool thing is that this vision card works for King Mont, it works for Sorrow, it works for Valentine Eldira, and it works for Yuffie. So this is effectively a mono fire card, and the effects, crit damage, acquired AP, evasion rate, they're all really good for all of those units. The unit effects, single target resistance, attack 10%. There's some luck on the card. It's a really very, very solid card. I'm probably going to put this on King Mont to give him the single target resistance, although I'm going to need to look at it some more, but definitely a very powerful card. And then we have Dark Ifrit, which is also coming, and maybe I'll make another video on that, but this is a fire and lightning card, and what's very unique about it is that it has 25% defense penetration. Now, this is very important for Yuffie because we were looking at that conditional defense penetration. So if you're finding that your Yuffie is in that first week, maybe she sometimes does take a hit but lives, then this might be really important. In general, this is going to make sure that she is always pushing that 85% defense penetration, and actually 100% if you have something like Black Garb on her, if you have the Thornlet or whatever on her, then you're going to be pushing 100% innate. Like, you'll just be going into battles with 100% defense penetration all the time. So this makes this VC very, very appetizing. The Esper is also really good as well. There's agility and luck on this card. There's AP on this card. It's kind of a no-brainer for fire and lightning in my eyes. However, it is a Dark Esper, it has the 40k pity. I'm going to be pulling for my first ever Dark Esper with this one. I'm going to be going for it myself. I had skipped every single other card and Esper because I just didn't feel it was worth my Visior to spend that much, but I finally found one that I'm really interested in, so I am going to be pulling for this, and it is going to be very, very powerful in that team. Let's talk about who Yuffie is going to be strong against and who she's going to be weak against if you're looking to counter her. So first of all, she will be strong against almost every unit because she can now negate these 100% hit attacks. It's going to be so powerful. She's going to be really solid against everyone because she has all this penetration on her kit. So really, it's more about who she's weak against. And by the way, like, who she's strong against, she's going to be effective against Sephiroth, which is pretty cool considering he just came out. Not that he's weak against her, but she can handle him better than, you know, anyone else in Fire right now. Now, there is some teams that can give Yuffie some problems, and Earth comes to mind. And the reason is because they have a few of her weaknesses. First of all, they have high accuracy units. So we have Rolgia, who can be very high accuracy. We have Queen Mashery, who can have, she has very good innate accuracy, but she has a plus 30% hit chance skill that is also a magic attack, and Yuffie is weak to magic. So Mashery has a good chance, if you build her ultra accuracy, to be able to take out Yuffie in one shot and just deal with her, which is a really big deal. So Earth is going to be something that Fire is a bit scared of, I think, especially when they eventually get their tank as well, because, you know, for every chance Earth has to take out Fire, Fire has to take out Earth as well. So the other element that we might kind of see is again these dark teams, because we have Dark Fina, who also magic attack plus 30% hit chance. Her innate accuracy isn't as high, as Queen Mastery's, but it's still pretty good. So if you build her in an ultra accuracy build, then she could be taking on Yuffie for sure, and taking on the other fire units as well. So, you know, Dark Fiend is somebody to consider. And then there's some water units that actually won't be much of a problem for Yuffie. See what I did there? Because they don't have very good accuracy. Now we can look at Perrine, who does have a 100% hit, so she can hit the other fire crew with that, but she won't hit Yuffie with it. Her innate accuracy isn't terrible by your standards, but she doesn't have those assisted hits that other people do. Now you might also be thinking that Wind will be in a good place because they have Revolutionary Glycella. However, she has a 30% hit increase for accuracy on one of her attacks. She has high innate accuracy, but Yuffie has a specific Pierce evasion stat that kind of negates that, makes it a little bit harder for Glycella to hit her. That's just something to keep in mind. So the question is, who should be pulling for Yuffie? And I think this one is pretty simple. Do you want to play Fire Evasion? Yes. Okay, you should be pulling for Yuffie. Do you not want to play Fire Evasion? Then no, you should not be pulling for Yuffie. I think you do want to take her to her dream upgrade for sure. You get AP, initial AP, which is so powerful. You get her crit build is more online. You get more evasion in general because you have the upgraded chance to blind people on her skill. So it's overall, it's a good dream upgrade. Let's go back to that first question though. Do you want to play Fire Evasion? And that's a really important question because you could use Yuffie with King Mont, and you could use her with Valentine Eldira. If you missed the Dragon Quest collab though, you missed the most important vision card for Fire. You missed Sorrow as a very good evasion partner for Yuffie. That's not a deal breaker, but it is a big deal. Those are big things to miss. You're gonna have to make up the efficiency of that Sorrow vision card that gives both max luck and agility on one single slot. That's going to be 2 vision cards you have to put into your party. It's going to limit your choices. She's still going to be usable, but just keep in mind that, you know, hopefully you had those things, you picked up those things when that collab came. And if you're a new player that wants to play Yuffie, then, I mean, it's really up to you. I will tell you right now that if you're not experienced in this game, that evasion is the hardest archetype to build. And the issue is that there are a lot of, it's very VC, Esper, and equipment heavy in terms of its needs, because you just have to have all the right stuff to maximize your evasion stat. Otherwise, people will just be hitting you. So it's a long-term project. It will pay off, and it's very fun to build. And once you build the equipment, the Espers, the vision cards for evasion, they do work in all elements for the most part. There are some exceptions, so it is something that you can get into, but it is going to be a project. Otherwise, that's going to be it for this video. I hope it was useful. Let me know if I missed anything. You can tell me. I will take the criticism, no problem. But otherwise, I will be back with some videos very soon. I'm going to be doing a live stream pulling for Yuffie. I'm so excited. So I hope you're excited too, and that you'll be joining me on Wednesday. I'll be doing that around 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So join me then, and we'll see you all on the next video.